If you want to grow your own avocados at home, there are some fundamental rules you need to follow in order to get them to fruit. So in this episode, I'm going to take you through some proven methods so that you can get your avocados from seed to fruit. I'm Tony O'Neill and this is Simplified Gardening, where I show you how to garden in a simpler way. If you want that perfect garden to relax in or just want to grow your own nutrient-dense foods, then start now by clicking the subscribe button and the bell icon. Then click all to be notified each time I release new content just like this. You may be interested in growing your own avocados at home. You may have even considered it or even tried and failed when using store-bought avocados. And yes, you can go and buy a grafted avocado plant from your local garden centre at home. But where's the fun in that? Because the fun in growing avocados is being able to grow them yourself. So let's get to the tips so that you can see how to grow an avocado from seed to fruit. When growing avocados at home from store-bought seed or pits, then there are two methods you can use to grow avocados. It's the toothpick method or the soil method. Now I have videos on both of these methods and I will put a link in the description below. Growing in these two ways will allow you to grow these plants at home, and they're fantastic for decorating your home because they give out great foliage that can be used in your home's interior. But when growing them from store-bought seeds or pits, it's important to pick organic seed. Choose your method on how you want to grow your avocados, whether it's toothpick or soil. For me, the soil method was much quicker. And if you want to see how I grew these avocado trees, you can see that in this episode, how to grow avocado tree from seed easy and fast. Early spring would be a fantastic time to start sowing your avocado seeds, but you can do it all year round. And I've found that the soil method is much quicker for me. And if you can provide bottom heat when you've sown your pit, then that will help with germination. People have even stated over various blogs and forums that even just tossing them into compost piles in warm climates has allowed them to germinate. If you've tried the toothpick method and failed, then the soil method is probably the way to go for you. But with the current lockdown and us all being at home and having to homeschool our children, the toothpick method is a fantastic way in which to be able to grow and allow the children to see that plant growing. It's a fantastic way to integrate gardening and a lesson at home. The seed will germinate by splitting initially. And as the root system and the top growth grows, the seed will split fully in half, so don't worry about this. Now, if you're using the toothpick method, be sure to change the water regularly. And if you're using the soil method, then ensure that you're watering regularly because they'll use lots of water at this time. No feed is required at this stage of their life, so just allow them to grow. But as the root system and the top growth gets to around about 10 inches in length, then it's time to pot these on. So it doesn't matter what method you're using, when that top growth is around 10 inches in length, then they will get into the soil. And that's the time when these plants will start to take off for you. Now, it may even surprise you that these trees can get to the dizzy heights of 80 feet, but don't let that frighten you off. They can be controlled with pruning, but not only that, there are even dwarf varieties that could be purchased and kept in pots their whole life. Growing from seed does have its challenges though, but you can grow great looking plants for use at home. But if you want fruit, as this title suggested, then you may have to wait up to 8 years before these seeds will fruit. Not only that, you can't guarantee that the avocados will come true because avocados won't come true to seed. So you don't know what fruit variety you're getting. It may have a totally different colour fruit and it may have totally different flavour and texture too. So you may be wondering, well, why bother grow from seed in the first place? But there's a much quicker way to get your seed to fruit, and it also removes all the unknowns about the fruit too, and that is to use the plants that you grew from seed as rootstock and to graft scion wood onto them. This reduces the actual fruiting time from around about 8 years down to 3 or 4 years, and it also gives you a known variety because you take the scion from a tree which has its known variety or its fruiting variety known. There is a caveat to grafting though, and that is that the success rates are really low, even for the professionals. But if you do decide to go down this route, here's a few tips that may help you. Grafting avocados at the right time. There are 2 main times in which you can graft your avocados, and the first of those is in the early spring and the second is in the late fall or late autumn. And the reason for this is the best times where you can separate the bark from the cambium layer, and the cambium layer is the key to successful grafting because this is where you need to take your rootstock cambium layer and the scion wood cambium layer, and if you can get them to match, then you will have a successful graft. And probably one of the most successful grafts to use is the cleft grafting technique, because this gives you a greater area and more likely chance of you matching up those cambium layers for a good strong graft. When grafting, aim for temperatures around 27 degrees Celsius or 80 degrees Fahrenheit, because you need good warm temperatures to keep the rootstock warm, but the scion wood needs to remain cool. When selecting your scion wood, select it from the ends of a branch because this is typically where the best buds are, and your scion wood should typically be between 1/4 of an inch and an inch in diameter. But the most important thing here is to match your scion wood with your rootstock and make sure that the diameter is equal. Wrap the graft with grafting tape and then place a clear plastic bag over the top and tape this up also. This will keep the humidity in and prevent the graft from drying out. Once the graft is taken, you can remove the tape and bag, and then you will have your plant that's ready to produce fruit in the next few years. Layering is another method that's used to speed up the fruiting process so that you take from a known graft. Now, this is a little bit out of context for this video, but I'm going to include it anyway because it is relevant. And all layering is you would take a tree from a known variety and you would cut a ring of bark around a branch. You would select a branch, cut that ring of bark around about an inch long, and then you would get a bag and pack it with damp moss, and then you would seal that bag up and give it a load of sealing with tape just to prevent it from drying out. Now, over the coming weeks, that ringed area will then produce roots, and you can sever it from the plant and then pot that on, and then you will have layered this plant, and what that means is it's a duplicate of the mother tree, so it's basically a clone, and that is a great way of doing it. But it doesn't really fall within the context of this video, but I thought I would include it because for some of you it may be a viable option. Now, as a rule of thumb for watering, then you should do this 3 times a week. If you plant in the ground, once the plant gets its roots out, you can reduce this to once a week. But when you're watering, you should water deeply. Allow that soil to get saturated and then allow it to dry out before watering again. How you feed your plants changes throughout the maturity of the plant, how old it is. And within its first year, you want to be feeding it 3 times a year in spring, summer and early fall, and you need to give it about a tablespoon of feed for each of those feedings. And in its second year, you want to be giving it about 1/4 pound 3 times a year, and in its third year about 1/2 pound of feed 3 times a year. So it's quite a lot of feed that these trees will take then. Now the feed in its early years will be a nitrogen based feed. Something like chicken manure pellets will be fantastic for this, because this will give it lots of nitrogen that will fuel the early leaf growth so that the tree can get some mass. As it gets a little bit older and we get into fruiting, so 3 or 4 if you're going to graft, or 8 years if you're just going to allow the seed to continue to grow, then you want to change this over to a high phosphate or potash feeds, because these feeds will aid in the production of fruit and the flowering process. One thing I'm always asked by people is, do I need male and female trees in order to get fruit? The short answer to this is no, but the more trees that you grow can help. Now, the reason behind this is because the avocado's flower contains both male and female parts, so they can actually fertilize themselves. And the flowers only open for about 4 days, so it's a real short period, and the female parts of the flower are only open for 2 to 4 hours. So if you've only got one tree, you need to be there bang on time in order to pollinate that tree. But if you've got more than one tree, then your chances are increased of a successful pollination. If you've got value from this video, you can subscribe here, and when you've done that, if you want to see how I grew these trees step by step, then you can watch that video right here. I'm Tony O'Neill. This is Simplified Gardening, where I show you how to garden in a simpler way. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.